Michelangelo di Lodovico Buonarroti Simoni, known simply as Michelangelo, was an Italian sculptor, painter, architect, and poet of the High Renaissance, born in the Republic of Florence, who exerted an unparalleled influence on the development of Western art. Several scholars have described Michelangelo as the greatest artist of his age, and even as the greatest artist of all time. In his lifetime, Michelangelo was often called Il Divino, the Divine One. A number of Michelangelo's works of painting, sculpture, and architecture rank among the most famous in existence. He is the best documented artist of the 16th century. He sculpted two of his best-known works, the Pieta and David, before the age of 30. Despite holding a low opinion of painting, he also created two of the most influential frescoes in the history of the Western art. The scenes from Genesis on the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel in Rome, and the Last Judgment on its outer wall. Michelangelo was abstemious in his personal life, and once told his apprentice Ascano Condivi, "However rich I may have been, I have always lived like a poor man." Condivi said he was indifferent to food and drink, eating more out of necessity than of pleasure, and that he often slept in his clothes and boots. His biographer, Paolo Giovio, says, "His nature was so rough and uncouth that his domestic habits were incredibly squalid and deprived posterity of any pupils who might have followed him. This, however, may not have affected him, as he was by nature a solitary and melancholy person, bizarro e fantastico, a man who withdrew himself from the company of men." It is impossible to know for certain whether Michelangelo had physical relationships. Condivi ascribed to him a monk-like chastity. Speculation about his sexuality is rooted in his poetry. He wrote over 300 sonnets and madrigals. The longest sequence displaying deep romantic feeling was written to Tommaso de' Cavalieri, who was 23 years old when Michelangelo met him in 1532 at the age of 57. These make up the first large sequence of poems in any modern tongue addressed by one man to another. They predate by 50 years Shakespeare's sonnets to the fair youth. "I feel as lit by fire, a cold countenance that burns me from afar and keeps itself ice chill. A strength I feel, two shapely arms to feel, which without motion moves every balance." Cavaliere replied, "I swear to return your love. Neither have I loved a man more than I love you. Never have I wished for a friendship more than I wish for yours." Cavaliere remained devoted to Michelangelo until his death. Late in life, Michelangelo nurtured a great platonic love for the poet and noble widow Vittoria Colonna, whom he met in Rome in 1536 or 1538, and who was in her late 40s at the time. They wrote sonnets for each other and were in regular contact until she died. The sonnets mostly deal with the spiritual issues that occupied them. Condivi recalls Michelangelo saying that his sole regret in life was that he did not kiss the widow's face in the same manner that he had her hand. The last sculpture that Michelangelo worked on 6 days before his death, the Rondanini Pieta, could never be completed because Michelangelo carved it away until there was insufficient stone. The legs and the detached arm remain from a previous stage of the work. As it remains, the sculpture has an abstract quality, in keeping with 20th century concepts of sculpture. Michelangelo died in Rome in 1564 at the age of 88, 3 weeks before his 89th birthday. His body was taken from Rome for interment at the Basilica of Santa Croce, fulfilling the maestro's last request to be buried in his beloved Florence.